Hello everyone! Today we are going to revisit my old Charge Creeper farm combined with a system to use them to explode wither skeletons. Charge Creepers have a unique property. If its explosion kills a zombie, a skeleton, another creeper or a wither skeleton, that mob will drop its head with 100% chance. However, on Java Edition each Charge Creeper explosion creates only one head, no matter how many mobs were killed by that explosion. In Bedrock Edition there is no such limitation, but the way mobs spawn in that version is completely different to Java, so I cannot say anything concrete about that contraption in Bedrock Edition. We get wither skeletons from a nether fortress on the other side of a portal, which means you need to find one first and build your farm around it. And we get creepers from a creeper spawning chamber down below. Hostile mobs can spawn only in 128 blocks around the player, and that is why I recommend to build this farm at y equals to 120 or maybe even higher depending on terrain. This way mobs won't be able to spawn anywhere else but inside a creeper chamber, which is located as low as possible, which increases spawn rates, but high enough to not allow anything to spawn on the ground or in caves. To charge creepers, we use a trident with channeling and loyalty enchantments. However, channeling invokes a lightning strike only when there is thunderstorm, not just regular rain. So, unfortunately, you have to wait for thunderstorm to use this farm, but once it's on, you will have wither skulls for days. Important! Sleeping the night away affects the weather cycle somehow. I'm not sure if this is a true reset, but it seems like it is better to avoid sleeping. You know that multiplayer sleep data pack from Vanilla Twix? This one invokes rain for 1 tick, which means you're not going to get thunder for a while. Also, if you're playing on Spigot, well, things can go wrong left, right and center. Maybe I should make a full video about cons of playing on Spigot. Let's get back to our farm. Once we have got a bunch of creepers and we charge them, we press this button and they drop down below. Now, if we press this button, we will send a minecart to pick up one charged creeper, and this button will send a minecart for a wither skeleton. Now we have our mobs in place and we can use flint and steel to detonate a creeper. And we have a wither skull. We don't need flint and steel, actually. Creepers can see us and explode on their own, but because there is no direct line of sight between the center of an explosion and a player, it will deal next to no damage to us. And because the center of an explosion is inside water, it deals no damage to blocks as well. If you would detonate a creeper way too early, it can in theory explode before it stops bobbing, so be careful with that. Here is a cutaway view of the killing chamber. It is very important that you place water sources in these exact spots. Otherwise, you can get a creeper popping up and down, which may cause destruction. Or you could have a wither skeleton standing too far away from a creeper to get killed in a single explosion. By the way, this end road doesn't have any functionality aside of just making it nicer to walk on top of a chest. Linking multiple portals at the same area can be a pain in a donkey, so let's just use one. To force wither skeletons to go into a holding chamber, we use an iron golem. Wither skeletons will try to kill it and walk towards it. We have trapdoors here and here because mobs see them as walkable blocks, they think there is a path to a golem, and they will just walk forward and fall down. And by having water flow like this, we push them into a corner where a minecart can pick them up. You can even ship out on a golem just by having a few extra blocks like this, because wither skeletons will eventually wander off the edge on their own, but that is a much slower process. Sometimes portals spawn zombie pigmen. To deal with them, we have a torso leg with a pit with trapdoors in between. So, because zombie pigmen are zombies, they will try to break that turtle leg and fall down in a process. Also, Turtle eggs won't hatch if they're placed on anything but sand. Important: if you're playing in multiplayer, there are plenty of opportunities for mobs to despawn. In single player, the only measure you need to take is to never visit this place by any other means but the nether portal. If this area is loaded and you are more than 128 blocks away in the overworld, charge creepers and wither skeletons will despawn. In multiplayer, if hostile mobs are loaded, if there are players in that dimension but none of them in 128 block radius, mobs will despawn. And here is the main problem. When a player leaves an area through a portal, that area is still loaded for a split second, which is enough for hostile mobs to despawn. So, basically, there is nothing you can do to prevent despawnable mobs from despawning in multiplayer. What you can do though is to rename wither skeletons beforehand, wait for thunder, charge your creepers and don't leave this area until you run out of mobs. You can get all the name tags you need from villagers and, before 1.16, from AFK fish farms, so it is not a problem to get plenty of name tags. Now let's take a look at the creeper spawning chamber. In my previous video, I used a design based on a cat sitting on a chest and scaring creepers away. These trapdoors on the ceiling invalidate zombies and skeletons from spawning, and these carpets, spiders. So, only creepers can spawn here. But as you can see, plenty of creepers are just standing here, doing nothing, and taking the mob cap. So, I have improved that design. The difference here is that we have two trapdoors over a mod, and as we already know, mobs see trapdoors as walkable blocks. So, they will want to run out over here, they will go, they will fall down, and they will get flushed into a water elevator. To have continuous water flow, we use a trick of placing water source here and signs here and here. In my creeper chamber, I have marked out water sources with light blue concrete. This elevator is made of glass panes, because if we would use full blocks, we would have a 1 block gap, and then creepers would get stuck in a doorway, so this is how we avoid that issue. By the way, mobs random wandering doesn't kick in if they are too far away from a player, and that is why we really need a cat here, because creepers will not wander off on their own. Now we go up and we drop creepers into this chamber. Also, there is a gap over here so that we can stand here, throw a trident at them and drop them down by powering trapdoors with this button. As you can see, we have the sky access in this chamber, which is needed to invoke a lightning strike. Also, having these blocks here is also important, because if we would remove them, then the skylight would be able to get inside the creeper chamber, invalidating some spawnable spots. Next, how do we transport mobs from their holding chambers to the explosion chamber? We have a minecart here, sitting on top of an unpowered rail. We press a button, rails get powered, a minecart picks up a mob, and then it goes on top of a detector rail. Then we have a powered activator rail that ejects a mob onto this red block, and a signal from a detector rail depowers a torch, which depowers a piston, and a mob falls down. And then this powered rail sends a minecart back. Let's watch it again. And we have the exact same setup for wither skeletons. Note, where you see leaves, it is better to have transparent blocks like leaves, glass or something like that. Well, you could get away with having full blocks here, but then you would hear mob damage noises when you use the machine. The reason why we have to have blocks here at all is to prevent mobs from being ejected onto rails, leaving that red block as the only place a mob can be ejected onto. Also, distances between all parts of this contraption are calculated specifically to prevent explosion from damaging other mobs in this contraption. Well, it does damage a creeper and a skeleton in minecarts, but they're going to die next anyway. And by the way, don't forget to light things up. So, this is a complete farm for single player. But what if you play multiplayer? By the way, it is not about if it is technically single player or not. It is about having another player in the overworld. In that case, you need to name tag wither skeletons in the nether beforehand so that they will not respawn after going to the overworld. You see, when something goes through a portal, it loses an area on the other side, which means every single unnamed wither skeleton will immediately respawn after going through a portal if there is someone in the overworld. And this is what I've came up with. You know what? You don't need this design. I have designed this contraption so that it will make it easier to rename skeletons one by one. But you don't need a contraption for that. Just rename a skeleton when you lure it. And that's it. And same for creepers. By standing at a safe distance, you can use this hole in a tube to rename creepers as they come by. Right. These stupid things exist. Put roofs on your buildings. Roofs made of non-transparent blocks. Then these things won't spawn. And this is all I have for you for today. World download will be in the description. And you know what? Because I haven't provided a block by block tutorial, let's just fly around so that you can see things in more details. Also, I would ask you to subscribe. I'll have more tutorials coming soon, including a data pack tutorial and a very special storage system. And maybe even some Let's Play episodes. I hope. I am so backlogged on my tutorial projects. Bye bye.